Hello, boys and girls. Guess what? We have a new book. This is our Unit 5 book. And our textbook looks different. Um, the theme of this one is Watch Us Grow. And just like when you were a little baby, you kept on living and growing, and you look a lot different, and you have a lot more skills. That is like the theme of this is that the characters in these stories are learning and growing. So this is our Unit 5 book. We have 6 texts. I can't believe we're already on the Unit 5 one. We're going to be reading The Garden from Frog and Toad Together, and it's by this man, Arnold Lobel. Arnold Lobel. He wrote the story and he also drew all the pictures that you're going to see. And he's like illustrated 100 children's books. He just loves to draw. So here's some pictures that he drew for this story. And as you can see, this is a fantasy. Fantasy is a story that could not happen ever because the animals, they're talking like people, they're dressing like people, they're walking around like people, and that could never happen. And so our theme for this story is gardens. I want to show you a picture of a garden right here. Looks like there's a dad and there's 2 kids out there planting some flowers in a garden. And when Mrs. Gillum plants a garden, she plants some flowers like in the front of her house, but she likes to plant vegetables. These kids are planting flowers though. Right now they're sort of like medium-sized flowers, but if they plant them, if they dig a hole and then take these out of the pots and put them in the hole and pat it down and water it, then those flower plants will get bushier, bigger and bushier. So, yeah, these flowers are going to grow and change, and these kids are going to grow and change. You're always growing and changing if you're a human. I think that's all I have to say about that. So let me go ahead and read this story to you, and then we're gonna answer some questions at the end. And I do want to go over our 8 sight words because you'll see them in yellow throughout the story. One of the words says window. It's a different color car than the rest. Few. These are the words that are on your test on Friday, and they're colored in yellow in your story. Shall. Story. Night. That GH is silent. Loudly. In a way that's loud. Loudly. Noise. World. The O is silent. World. And that's it. Back to window again. Okay, I'll go ahead and read it with you, or to you. The Garden from Frog and Toad Together. So, frog, and it doesn't have a picture of frog, so just like imagine, look at the back of your eyelids and imagine a frog, okay? Because he's saying this. Frog was in his garden. So can you imagine a frog in a garden? This is a toad. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice. But it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here are some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. So let's stop right there. On this page, where Mr. Lobel did not draw a picture, I hope you imagined a frog, giving the toad some seeds so that he could plant a garden. And now he's running home because Frog said that he would have a garden quite soon if he planted them. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not start to grow. So is that what you guys do? You plant them and you tell them to start growing and they just start growing? Is that what happens? Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing!" Frog, you don't see Frog, but just imagine him. Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he asked. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Frog. "These poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" asked Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow." So he's giving him some good advice, just to leave them alone for a few days. Let's see if he's going to leave them alone. That night, Toad looked out of his window. "Drat," said Toad. "My seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out to his garden with some candles. Oh, there's the candles. He thinks they're afraid of the dark, so he's going to put some candles there. "I will read the seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they will not be afraid." Toad read a long story to his seeds. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. Look, it's raining. He's singing. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. This is a poem book. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Whoa. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired, and he fell asleep. Okay, so he tried singing to them, reading poems to them. He tried playing his violin for them. He thinks they're super scared from him shouting at them at the beginning of the story. Look at all the little sprouts. "Toad, Toad, wake up," said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden, too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad, "but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." Okay, let's read the questions. Describe what Toad does to get his seeds to grow. And then what really makes them grow? Well, let's look back at the pictures to see what he tried to do to get them to grow. I think he first tried just yelling at them to start growing. He tried yelling. His friend told him to leave them alone. Just let the sun shine and the rain fall on them. He tried putting some light out in the garden so they wouldn't be afraid of the dark. He tried reading them a long bedtime story. He tried singing to them, reading poems to them, playing music to them. But what really got them to grow is just exactly what Frog told him. Just to leave them alone and just let the sun shine and the rain pour on them. Okay, let's look at the next question. How does Frog help Toad? Now, you didn't get to see a picture because there is no picture for this, but the frog helped him. Maybe that's the little bag of seeds he gave them. But he was his inspiration. He gave Toad the idea to have a beautiful flower garden because he had a beautiful flower garden. Then he gave him some flower seeds. And then, when he saw he was yelling at his seeds, he gave him good advice to just let the sun shine and the rain fall on them. Okay, last question. What would you plant in a garden? How would you take care of the garden? So that is your opinion. Mrs. Gillum likes butternut squash, strawberries. I grew potatoes out of some potatoes that they started growing because I sort of forgot about them. So I went and planted them. They really do grow. You have to rinse them off because unless you get the organic kind, you have to rinse them off or they won't really grow all the way. But I grew potatoes for the first time. So I like potatoes, I like strawberries, and I like butternut squash. So what would you plant in your garden? I don't know. And would you take care of it by watering it every day? Because that's what you have to do so they don't get dried out. Okay, maybe you'd have to pull some weeds up around your plants too if they were planted directly in the ground and not in a pot somewhere. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed the story. I did. This is one of my favorite stories. All right, bye-bye.